This country has the highest number of startups per capita and one of the highest levels of life expectancy and education. Here, cities and parks are made from the desert for a peaceful and happy life. But at the same time, for 75 years since its founding, Israel has been continuously at war. It all starts way back in biblical times when the land of Israel was promised to the Jews. Over the years, they faced many invaders, and their independence was snatched away, eventually falling under Roman rule in 63 BC. Things heated up in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD with Jewish revolts against the Romans, but they didn't end well. Fast forward to the late 1800s, and more Jews started heading to Palestine, escaping Eastern European pogroms. This era is called the First Aliyah. In the early 1900s, European Jewish communities started buying land in Palestine, even though the Ottoman Empire, who controlled the area, wasn't exactly thrilled about it. But Jews paid good money even for the worst areas. They brought some cool farming methods to make the land more fertile. In 1897, the first World Zionist Congress happened, giving birth to the World Zionist Organization, led by Theodor Herzl. Herzl tried to get support from European leaders and got Jews worldwide pumped about the idea of having their own country. The second Aliyah started in 1904, mainly Jews escaping Russian pogroms, and this period also marked the birth of kibbutzim. These communal farms where everyone shared everything, they still exist to this day. Interestingly, Adam Newman lived in one in his childhood, long before the WeWork disaster. World War I shook things up, and the Ottoman Empire lost its grip to Palestine. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration promised Jews a national home in Palestine. And 5 years later, the League of Nations was all for the British rule based on this declaration. There were more waves of Jewish immigration, but the fifth Aliyah that began in 1929 was a big deal, with Jews fleeing the Nazis. A little later, tensions between Jews and Arabs boiled over, leading to an Arab uprising against British rule. The British responded with the White Paper limiting Jewish immigration. After World War II, the British still kept those immigration restrictions. This made the Zionists pretty mad, and they rebelled against the British. The UN stepped in to sort out the Palestinian issue in 1947, suggesting either a divided state for Jews and Arabs or a single state. The US and the Soviet Union were big players in all this. In November 1947, the UN voted to split British Palestine, and the very next day, the Arab League declared war. 5 Arab countries invaded, and Israel got a helping hand from Czechoslovakia. By the spring of 1949, Israel had signed truces with most of its enemies, securing its territory. Jerusalem was split between Israel and Jordan, and Israel joined the UN, finally getting official recognition as a state. So what came next? Israel started turning heads around the world. Take a look at a couple of Israeli inventions that, believe it or not, are selling like hotcakes all over the globe. The Uzi submachine gun and cherry tomatoes. The Uzi submachine gun is the real standout. Back in the late 40s, Israel was in a tough spot, fighting for its independence and scrambling to figure out how to make weapons using whatever tools they had. That's when a young designer named Uzi Gal, or simply Uzi, stepped up and created the Uzi submachine gun. The funny thing is, he didn't want it named after him. Now let's talk cherry tomatoes. Sure, they didn't originate in Israel. They were growing wild in America. But in 1973, Israel has decided to make them into a commercial product that's easy to store, sweet, and can handle droughts. You might have heard of the book Startup Nation by Dan Senner and Saul Sinner. They're both journalists with Jewish roots, and their 29 books they talked about how Israel's economy was taking off. Back then, Israel had 63 publicly traded companies, and that's pretty impressive for a country with only 7.5 million people. To put it in perspective, let's take a look at countries and their billion-dollar companies per million people. The US, China, and India are the big players, no doubt. But what if we calculate the number of these big companies per 1 million people? Well, that's when Israel and Singapore take the lead. That's pretty remarkable, especially when you consider how expensive it is to live in Israel. I mean, Tel Aviv is the 3rd most costly city in the world, just behind Singapore and New York. Wondering why that is? Well, Israel is all about exporting its goods. With only 9 million people, big companies need more customers. Take Get Taxi Company, for example. In March 2011, they were testing the app in Israel. In just 6 months later, they were up and running in London. Israel's folks are innovative because they have to be. They didn't have many resources to start with. It's just like what they did with cherry tomatoes and Uzi guns. Look at these pictures of Israel. All lush and colorful, right? Hard to believe this place was built right in the middle of a desert, huh? Wondering how they managed that? Well, it's thanks to the drip irrigation system they came up with. Those tubes make sure every tree and plant gets enough water. And guess what? They're 20% more efficient than natural rain. Ever heard of a population pyramid? It's a graph that shows how old the population is. Look at the US and Germany. You can see fewer kids under 10 compared to folks between 20 and 70. Japan? They've got a problem with low birth rates, and their graph doesn't even look like a pyramid anymore. But Israel's a bit different. It's got a balanced shape with lots of young people who need education and support. That's why Israel is really into immigration. New citizens get a financial boost, and in return, they're likely to contribute to the Israeli economy because they're usually well-educated and experienced. These smart strategies have worked in the country's favor for a while. Back in 1952, people hit the streets to protest against the government. Why? Because those in charge made a deal with Germany right after World War II. The Nazis didn't just kill millions of Jews, they also used slave labor. But Israel didn't have much of a choice. It was dealing with a poor economy and had been at odds with the Arabs since day one. So they needed cash for defense and development. When Israel approached the USSR, the US, and Britain for help, they all turned them down. But the first Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Konrad Adenauer, stepped up and agreed to pay 3 billion marks over 14 years as reparations for the horrors of the war. Don't get it twisted. No amount of money can make up for the Holocaust. But this deal worked out well for both sides. Israel got the funds it needed for farming equipment, factories, and investments in science and education. So those are historical and bold facts about Israel and its development. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, please hit the like button and share this video with friends. See you soon.